Nice
Trish.
to meet you.
Is it Commissioner West?
Yeah, you are too funny.
Yeah, write it down.
I got it right here.
Oh, just for a second.
Michael forgets my name too, so it's okay.
Well, I get called all kinds of things. It doesn't
And Mike and I
matter.
served in Concord and
Oh,
here.
right.
Not anymore in Concord, thank
Am I
goodness.
having one of my moments?
You might be. That's okay, that's why I'm here.
That's why he's there. It's either
If I'm
Tim or
having one of my
I.
moments, just keep me propped
Just
up.
don't call
I'm
him,
just gonna keep you propped up. That's
just
right.
don't call him Trish. That's it.
You probably will though, okay?
Although,
It's a T.
I haven't plucked the hairs lately,
Yeah.
so yeah.
I usually answer to hey you, so you know, that's
So
all
do
good.
I.
That's all good.
Hey, you, it's 1800.
Thank you, thank you, sir.
Out there in TV land, good evening. Today being September 12th, 2024, the start time is 6 p.m. or 1800 hours. And this is a joint meeting of the Board of Police Commissions and the Committee of Infrastructure. And again, this being Wednesday, September 12th, 2024, at 6 p.m. in the automatic chamber. And can the clerk, are you ready to do the roll call? Mr. McCook, thank you.
Yes, sir. And starting off with roll call, I have Chairman O'Brien.
Present.
Commissioner Tolner, I believe, is not being able to join us this evening, and he sent his regrets. Commissioner Crillo,
Present,
Commissioner Dahl, I believe can't make it this evening and has sent his regrets. Alderman Clee,
Here,
Alderman Dowd, I do not believe is here yet this evening, so skipping over him, Alderman Sullivan.
Here.
And Alderman Thibodeau.
Here.
With 1, 2, 3, 4. With 5 members present, you do have quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, also in attendance is Captain Tom Bolton of NPD, Karen Smith, NPD Business Manager, and of course, Mr. Cummings, Administrative Services Director, and doing somewhat of a presentation will be Mr. Tim Lemire. Okay, public comment, seeing nobody in the audience. The approval of minutes, there is none. General progress update. I will now turn the meeting to Administrative Services Director Tim Cummings to provide us with the project status.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So just to set the table this evening, really only one major discussion item, and that's relative to the bond resolution that we are hopefully going to be seeking, which I would like to ask for to be filed at the next Board of Aldermen meeting. So before that occurs, want to have a conversation about the pricing that we got in most recently. At the last meeting, we provided you with the cost estimate that Whiting Turner provided us, but wanted to take a little bit deeper dive into it at this meeting, talk about total project cost, and how we arrived at the request that we have at hand. So with that being said, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to hand it over to Tim Lemire, who will give you a more detailed update now that I orientated the group.
Great, thank you, everybody. And if there are any questions as we go through some things, please feel free to interrupt. But on your handouts in green, we'll just kind of go real quickly into where we are right now with the general project. And this will be really quick, but 2 meetings ago, we approved some scope of work changes for the architect, and they are currently working on the design of those changes. Some of the major items there are listed here with the retaining wall, some of the water meter utility splitting, the new IT closet in 9 Riverside, and the most significant item there would be the generator, the backup generator for the 9 Riverside building. Those are currently in progress under design. And other scope items that were in the original scope of work that the architect had designed in the spring, those are pretty much at the place of construction documents. So what the architect's going through finalize things like, hardware schedules, little things like that that are going to be based on the police department's preferences for what they want, and also the final construction documents, putting the city's front-end contract in there, making sure it's ready for advertisement. So with that, we're tentatively looking at the design wrapping up around Thanksgiving, and then having a full advertisement schedule being prepared in between Thanksgiving and Christmas. On the next page, we have the cost proposal. So as Mr. Cummings mentioned, we have a cost proposal from our construction management firm, Whiting Turner, at $2,580,631. That would be a all-inclusive GMP cost estimate. We're still, we'll go through the GMP upon the design being 100% complete, but this cost estimate takes into account those scope of work items. They just can't be finalized without the design in the construction manager's hands. My project budget analysis that incorporates all the soft cost, architect costs, the consultant, OPM soft costs, some of the utility costs during construction, is coming in at about $3,489,985 total project dollars. And with that does include the owner's contingency funds and the estimating contingency. So that's where we are with expected total project at the moment. So with that, I'd kind of like to open it up for any questions on construction costs or total project costs.
Mr. Lemire, I do have a question. Hate to do this at the 11th hour, so to speak, but the police department does have a current generator, and we're not talking a great distance. Did anybody evaluate the generator at NPD? Is it worth the life expectancy of that generator, and to incorporate this into this project and kill two birds with one stone? Or is it going to be an exorbitant cost? I imagine it's going to be underground cabling, it's going to be digging up a parking lot, and I understand all that.
Alderman O'Brien, Tom Bolton, National Police. That is a relatively new generator that we have at our
So it
at our
isn't
facility.
worth it?
It wouldn't be. It's
okay.
within 10 years old.
Yeah. I'm just thinking if it would be better to upgrade the generator than to
We're
go
in
with
good
standalone.
It's probably
Yeah.
cycled on a half dozen times, so we're in good position there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Answer my question. Thank you, Cap. Yes, Mr. Alderman Sullivan.
Thank you. Could you explain the difference between the owner's contingency and the estimating contingency, please?
Want me to?
Yeah, why don't you take that?
Sure. So, owner's contingency would be developed relative to the hard construction costs, project budget. The estimating contingency is something you develop during the design period for when an architect or design team professional doesn't really have a good understanding as to what the true project is yet. And so therefore, they may be off in some way in the estimating. You have a contingency that you could pull from. You could very much incorporate it into the other contingency if you wanted to, but when we first started out, we set aside an estimated contingency. And if we needed to reduce anything along the way, that would be one of the first places I would look to reduce because of where we are at design.
Do you have a follow-up, please? Mr. Chairman, follow-up?
Yes, follow-up, yes.
Is there a rule of thumb? Is there a typical percentage of total project cost that you assign to a contingency? Or is it as you go along, you see different areas that you say, well, we could do that, that would cost this? I mean, what's the process there, please?
So as you go on, you can reduce the contingency down to when you feel comfortable with the design and the project itself. And then ultimately, depending on the project, a rule of thumb could be anywhere between 10 and 20% for a contingency, depending on the project itself.
Okay. Thanks.
Alderman Dowd.
Yeah, the owner's contingency is for things like you're on the joint special, like if we have a PCO that we want to add scope to the project, that comes out of the owner's contingency. If it's a design issue, that comes out of the design contingency. So if they made a mistake in the design and said, oops, we should have done this, then that comes out of design contingency.
Yeah.
And there is a set amount, and typically you don't touch contingency till the very end of the project, because contingencies for that term that I've introduced are the unknown unknowns, and you don't know what the unknown unknowns are until the project is ready for signature on substantial completion.
And if I could, Mr. Chairman? There also is a contingency built into Whiting Turner's budget as well, and that is typically referred to as the construction contingency. And that is usually, I often see the lowest percentage. So rough numbers, you could see a construction contingency of about 5% of a total, of a project budget. And then it kind of goes to 10 or 15%, and then the design can anywhere be about 10%.
So is that in the line item number 8, construction cost and markups, in that 2.8580 million?
Yes.
Is that baked in there?
Yes, it's baked in there.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you look at page 2, and underneath the subtotals, it looks like it's the third item or third item down.
Page 2.
Page 2
Oh, this one?
of the Whiting Turner estimate. Underneath subtotal cost, then you have 1, 2, 3, you have it looks like it's, the second and third contingency.
That is an eye chart right there.
And those are generally negotiable as approaching the GMP.
Alderman Sullivan, are you all set?
I'm sorry, I'm on page 2. Director Cummings, could you point it out again? I'm just not seeing
If
it.
you see how there's items 1 through 33,
Yes.
and if you go below that, there's another column of, it starts with subcontractor insurance, estimating contingency, construction
yeah, yeah,
contingency.
yeah. 29,000 and change? Looks like
Yeah. 39.
39.
And I believe generally the contract language that the city prefers, that can only be used under the consent of the city. So the contractor can't just unilaterally use that contingency pot.
Okay.
We have another pending question. If you're all set,
Yep,
Alderman
I'm all
Sullivan.
set. Thanks.
Very good. Thank you, sir. Alderman Clayton.
That's okay. I have no problems being patient. I just wanted to clarify both for myself and for the public that's listening, that these two sets of numbers are not in addition to each other, that the second set of that the second number, that
Correct.
$3.5 million is actually taking their numbers, adding all of the administrative costs and et cetera, and that this is really what we would hope to be the maximum number.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
And Director Sullivan and Chairman O'Brien, correct me if I'm wrong, but when we did the ad hoc committee, we actually budgeted for $3.5 million. So we anticipated this $3.5 million. When we're talking about creating a bond, we actually anticipated this 3.5. So we've already been planning for this and so on, so we've all been thinking about this. So for the viewing public and for my trying to, that's why I was kind of like looking for the paper and so on. That is correct? Am I on the right track here?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so.
Thank you, Alderman Clay.
Okay, thank you.
Further questions, member of the committees? Seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, if I may?
Yes, you may.
And so, there's a couple other items I want to kind of bring up and tease out. So, I was recently speaking to Commissioner Tollner. He raised some points that I just want to kind of get out to the group here on his behalf, so we can have the discussion. There's some other items that the police department have flagged as potential issues or concerns that they want to make sure everyone is aware of. The thought process and the way I recommended proceeding would be to use contingency later on in the project to potentially do some of these items, but we've also planned to spend some of this project budget on some of the items mentioned that he referenced. And so in particular was a parking lot issue that the police department has identified. We had always planned on that total project budget number to be able to start the design work in the project here. You wouldn't be able to go to construction. That would be another request, whether it's a bond request or not. We would have to see what actually the project cost is. But to start the design, we actually have that as part of the scope of this project. So I know that was raised as a concern. There were some other, I would say, improvements or deferred capital maintenance at the police station itself that also needs to be looked at. I would suggest that with the available contingency at the end of the project, if we could write the resolution in a way to take care of some of those concerns. That is what I would recommend. Some of those concerns raised, and as an example, I'm talking about the booking area where the cells are, needs some attention. That item, I would suggest we would address it at the end of the project. That wasn't incorporated into the project to date. And so I would suggest with the healthy contingency that we're covering, if we continue to still have a healthy contingency when we get to the end of the project, we would look to use those funds. I'd like to turn it over to Tim Lemire, if I could, Mr. Chairman, so he can just talk in a little bit more technical detail on this.
Absolutely. Mr. Lemire.
Great. So one of the major items Mr. Cummings mentioned was regarding the parking lot, and one of the original hopes was to perform really some site civil maintenance on the parking lot, but it's clear that there needs to be some serious design engineering services to understand a scope of work that would actually make any site civil endeavor productive to the city and to the police. So one of the, as Mr. Cummings mentioned, a real benefit would be if contingency funds were existing at the end of construction of this project to engage a civil designer to start scoping the needs of the parking lots, the campus traffic flow, and also that would incorporate the new connection that this project is building to the former DPW parking lot to the current police campus. So it's at a stage now where piecemealing small Band-Aid type projects might not be very cost effective, and a real actual campus-wide design is likely the next step for the police.
Alderman Clay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that's a great idea if there's a healthy contingency. The only problem that I don't want to get into, and I like the idea that we're bringing it forward now, talking about it in public. I just don't want to get into the problem that we had with a school project when we kind of got to the end and people said, well, we had always, the idea was that we were going to do X, Y, and Z, and then suddenly we're bonding for it. So the fact we're talking about it now, I think this is a great idea. We're getting it out in the public, completely transparent about the whole thing. Are we talking about putting this not just into the resolution, but are we talking about putting this into the pre-design, or are we talking about, this is not like into a design project, or are we talking about doing that only if we have money left over, then we're going to bring in a civil engineer that will design and do it,
Mr.
or?
Cummings,
Yeah,
please.
thank you. So, and I'm going to have Tim Lemire check me if I get this wrong.
Yep.
But I believe relative to the parking, we can do that design work now up front because we had always had that as part of the original scope of this project. We had always known that we were going to need to do some sort of design work relative to the campus, the police department campus, because of the reconfiguration of the parking lots necessary to incorporate the training facility into the entire site. We're putting a fence around it. So early on, Tim Lemire and I recognized this issue. We planned for it accordingly, and so that's there. I would suggest the booking area issue that was recently raised is not part of this scope. And it could, and if we write the resolution in a way, it could be an eligible expense to start the design work now, which I would recommend, but I would suggest we would wait till the end of the project after we get through the project significantly enough so we all felt comfortable that there was enough contingency where we could proceed with the project. The other alternative way of approaching this, and this is not an uncommon practice for the city, is at the end of the project, whatever surplus is left, which is going to be contingency, we would repurpose it for the police department's benefit, just like we did with DPW right now, and then they would move on with the booking project as delineated. Now, you may ask, well, is that booking project in any of our long-term plans? The answer is yes. It's in the ad hoc plan that we recently developed. I would suggest it's in year 28 off the top of my head, might be 29, might be 27, but it's a few years out. So the police department would be just getting, I wouldn't say ahead, they actually would just be staying on track with being in a place to be able to enter construction in 27, 28, 29, whatever the case may be. So that's how I would proceed.
Just one more quick follow-up.
Follow-up?
Okay, so I guess my only other follow-up would be is, if there wasn't a healthy contingency, we do have a plan for 27 or 28, and, okay, I'll just leave it there, thank you.
I'll say, if I may, Mr. Chairman, both the booking and the parking lot are in the ad hoc plan.
Okay.
And are construction items that I think that the city is planning on, if they stay true to the vision as articulated this summer, to be capital projects that we would do within the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Alderman Dow.
I would suggest that the bond be written in such a manner that allows for the use of the contingency funds on things related to the police department building and grounds, so that if this committee and the full Board of Aldermen agree that the contingency can be used for those projects. I'd also think that it should be written such that if we get to a position where we're at the end of the project and we wanted to do more, that the bond would allow us to add money to the bond to do additional work. I'm not saying we do that, but I think it gives us the flexibility to do that rather than going forth with another bond, which would take forever. So I think you can write the bond legislation like we did with the middle schools so that you can cover the things that you need to cover without going back to the drawing board for a second time.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, absolutely.
So, I believe throughout this whole process, we had been talking about a scope of work, and everything we've captured here and have been discussing is currently reflective in what we've been discussing. The only newer item would be this booking area, which I'm suggesting we don't need to change the $3.5 million request. I'm just saying that because of the amount of contingency we're carrying, we should be able to start to do the design of that with this 3.5. And that conversation to date has not occurred publicly, which is why I wanted to address it right now.
Commissioner?
So it's my understanding that the total of the bond is 3.5 million. Is that correct?
If I may, Mr. Chairman?
Sure.
We haven't asked for anything as of yet, but it would be my request and intention to have legislation filed that would say 3.5 million.
And the total sum of that 3.5 million would be directed for the police department for the 9 Riverside Drive. And then if there's extra money left over in this contingency fund, it would be used towards the parking lot and the booking.
If I may?
Go,
Thank you. I would suggest the parking lot we could do in an upfront without waiting for contingency.
Okay.
The booking area is where I would say we would need to make sure we're watching to ensure that we have a healthy contingency, because we had always planned on doing some of the parking lot work now that we knew needed to be done, and it was carried in the 2.5 figure that you're seeing.
Okay. And so, if I may have a follow-up.
Follow-up, yeah.
The total sum of the 3.5 million is allocated to the police department. There's no other projects involved with this particular bond.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions, member of the committee? Seeing none. Director Cummings?
So if we just move on the agenda, we have no approvals, Mr. Chairman, of invoices. We have no approvals of new contracts or proposals. What I would ask for is a motion to support a $3.5 million bond authorization request, so we can start to have that legislation drafted.
Alderman Dow?
I'd like to make that motion, so moved, and proceed with a bond request for $3.5 million for 9 Riverside Drive project.
Okay, and do you want to amend it at this time to say that the money, if there's extra monies that could be gone into booking, should that be part of this particular?
Now, I think if we write the bond resolution correctly, it can be covered.
All right, so no need to
No.
approve it, just so everybody knows what we're trying to do here. Okay, very good. The Dowd amendment is to approve the 3.5 million. Any discussion on the motion? Alderman Sullivan?
Thank you, Chairman O'Brien. Since we do have Alderman Dowd here, I do have the 25 budget open. We did appropriate this. We did plan on it, didn't we? I was just trying to figure out where in the budget it was, under what department, where would it be?
It's
I'm
not under
shaking
that,
his
it's
head.
under that, the bonding plan that the Board of Aldermen approved for the
All right, so
5-year
it-
bonding.
So it's
And
not in the
it-
budget, it's in the ad hoc plan.
But I believe the budget would cover any 2025 budget debt service associated with that bond, which may be minimal or even, depends when they sell the bond. I mean,
Right.
so it would only be the debt service. And I'm sure that we have funds in the budget that would cover that, or it would have been brought up by the treasurer.
So the principal and interest, should we sell it this year?
No.
Is that what you
It won't be
mean?
this year. Won't be 25.
No, I understand that. But if we were to do it, then what you're saying is we would have enough in the budget if we were to sell the bond this year, and any principal and interest that were due this year, we would have enough to cover it in this year's budget.
Yes.
Okay. Wanted to clarify.
Okay, Director Cummings, do you have anything else
I'm
to
good.
add to that?
If I could, Mr. Chairman, I'm going to double check that, Alderman Sullivan, to just make sure we're 100% on good ground here. I don't know to answer the question, and I defer to Chairman Dowd, but I did think I heard in passing that this particular project, along with a couple other projects, may need it may need to be appropriated because it wasn't part of the budget. And so we would need to, because it wasn't part of the cap calculation, we would need to exclude the debt to be able to accommodate this and then approve the bond resolution.
Okay, okay.
Alderman Dowd?
Yeah, so the treasurer puts forth a bond plan. The 3.5 million was listed in there along with the debt service. And I don't think it was going to be paid for in '25, but before we ever sell a bond, we pay the bills under a cash. We have plenty of cash to do that. So they could wait some time before they actually sell the bond, especially if they thought interest rates are coming down. So, and I'm sure we have enough for the debt service based on the calculations that John Griffin did.
And I will say, Mr. Chairman, that there is absolutely no plan to sell the bond right now. We're actually in the midst of it right now, so there's no way we can do it this year. At the earliest we'd be able to do it is next year,
Right.
next August timeframe.
All set, Alderman Sullivan, thank you. Okay, before us is the standing amendment, motion, excuse me, made by Alderman Dowd. I will call a vote, voice vote, without objection. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next on the agenda is, do you have anything else, Georgia?
No, sir.
Old and miscellaneous business items?
No.
There's nothing to present forward. We're still in our infancy here. So, leads us into everybody's favorite motion. Alderman Clay, I'll give you the honors.
Oh, my favorite motion. At this time, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Motion is to adjourn, which is always in order. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries, and we're going to adjourn at 6:31 PM. Thank you all for coming, and to remind you, there will be a presentation at 7 PM by the Pettichuck people, so.